Who am I going to go to first? I'm actually most intrigued to hear what Jack has been watching, because this is a show that, like, I heard it was coming out and I was like, one, that's a weird thing to do an entire show on, and two, sorry, it's coming to Disney Plus.
Yep. 3, it stars Lily James, who usually stars in, like, you know, costume dramas and light-hearted family sort of romancy entertainment type things, and then all of a sudden there she is as Pamela Anderson as well.
Can I say, by the way, like, a heroic job by the makeup department? Because, like, I've seen, like, the promotional stills for the show, and, like, not like she looks one-to-one that you'd confuse her completely for Pam Anderson, but, like very similar.
You wouldn't confuse her for Lily James,
CG.
though, would you? You look at that,
No.
and she's unidentifiable.
Yeah.
But yes, Pam and Tommy is fucking crackers. It is mental. They have made some decisions on this show that just... I'm watching it completely agog. And like you say, Dave, the fact that this is released to Disney Plus as well just makes it, like, all the more insane that this thing exists.
Does it do, like, the Disney Plus thing at the start?
It does the Star thing at the start, because, you know, that's
okay.
their subset of their sort of edgier brand. But yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty sure most people would be aware of it, but anyone that's kind of too young, Tommy Lee is the drummer for Motley Crue, who were massive in the 80s. In the 90s, he was pretty much just hanging around doing lots of cokes and being an unimaginably large douchebag, and just an absolute prick at every possible opportunity. Pamela Anderson was the biggest star on television in Baywatch. The two of them met at a nightclub and got married after like 4 or 5 days and a trip to Cancun, and of course, you know, true love reigned, except that it didn't. They broke up after 3 years, and Tommy Lee was pretty heavily accused of domestic violence, among all the other horrible, shitty things that he's done in his life, including having a Nazi tattoo, which is just... He's just a lovely person. Luckily, Sebastian Stan, portraying him in the show, portrays him as an absolute wanker. One of my main worries going into this was, I was like, if they glorify this Tommy Lee character, you know, if they make him seem like a sort of, you know, rock and roll kind of cool guy that picks up Pamela Anderson, like, you know, the sort of hot chick who's, you know, the it girl at that time, I would have switched it off immediately. But they don't, right from moment one. So, like, Seth Rogen plays a guy who is working in carpentry, but his previous career was in pornography, because he was a handyman in, like, a building, and he met up with a woman, and she just so happened to work in porn, and he just so happened to be hanging around the sets of porn movies, and met the porn director, who is brilliantly played by Nick Offerman, by the way, one of the gems in the sort of Hollywood, California area, and any project that involves him, I immediately get a smile on my face, and he's hilarious in it as well. So... aside from rocking a heroic mullet rather, and Zubaz pants, there's a lot of Zubaz pants action in this, I must say.
I saw his tweet of his favourite fits from the show, and, like, that was probably selling point number one for me.
He didn't put the Zubaz pants in there, though. I was like, well, I mean, that was top by a long way. There was a point where he was wearing, like, a wife beater in Zubaz pants, which is outrageously great. So he's working and redeveloping Tommy Lee's house. Tommy Lee fires him, is a massive dick. He wants to get revenge, so he steals a safe out of his house. And in the safe, you know, he goes through all the cash and, you know, spends loads of cash and sells off all his jewels and takes it. And the last thing he looks at is, like, a weird tape. He's like, what the hell is this? He takes it to his old porn mate, and the porn mate plays it. They realise what it is. They set it up on the internet, they start selling the tape, right? So it's the first real kind of celebrity sex tape scandal that was widely distributed over the internet. And the story of it is pretty kind of close to what happened in reality. You know, they've probably taken a few artistic liberties in terms of the motivations behind it all, but it's just done, like, so the second episode is Pamela and Tommy meeting for the first time, and then them going to Cancun, and then them getting married. And there is. Do any of you care about spoilers for the show? I mean, everyone kind of knows what happens, but like in terms of the details, is anyone fussed about it?
I can't say that I am.
No.
Okay, so there is a scene in the second episode.
Can I just say, does this involve, shall we say, an intimate conversation with one character?
Oh, well, sort of. So it involves Tommy Lee after a night of hard ecstasy and sex with Pamela Anderson, talking to his own penis.
Yep, that's exactly what I was referring to.
A massive dangly prosthetic penis that had been grafted onto Sebastian Stan, unless that is Sebastian Stan's dick, in which case fair play, buddy. Rocking some serious wood there between the odd legs. And yeah, he's talking to it, and the penis is sort of like bending, and the only thing that doesn't happen is like the open of the penis doesn't start talking like a mouth, but it's sort of reacting and moving all around. And I'm thinking, like, somebody spent quite a lot of time CGIing this penis's reactions to have any kind of conversation with.
And this is on
Tommy
Disney.
Lee. And this is on Disney Plus, and it was at that point where I was like, I don't actually care what happens in the rest of the show after this. I am fucking in. This thing is berserk. I get the feeling. So the show opens with Jay Leno sort of grilling Pamela Anderson about the sex tape, and her clearly not wanting to talk about it. And within the first couple of episodes, you're seeing a side of Pamela Anderson where, she loves classic movies. She's into sort of like romantic stuff. She's not really, she doesn't want to be this sort of like bombshell, sort of like sex icon. She'd much rather just be an actress and, have a nice career and, do things that make her happy. And I just get the feeling that obviously towards the end it's going to get real sad and real depressing for her and the situation, because really the reason that, in canon in this, the reason that sex tape got released is because Tommy Lee refused to pay Seth Rogen's character like the matter of a few grand for developing his house essentially, and then he decided to take his revenge in quite brutal and spectacular fashion. And it seemed like all the horrible shitty things that happened in her life kind of were really out of her control, and it shows a lot of like the exploitation of actresses around that time. And again, even attitudes. I don't know if you guys saw this, but someone posted on Twitter maybe a year or so ago, and it was Jimmy Kimmel interviewing like Lindsay Lohan. It must have been only 10 years ago, and he was just being so horrible to her, like really making fun of like all the problems she'd been having, the alcoholism and like bits and pieces in her personal life, just generally being just a douchebag. And you think that maybe we'd moved on from male talk show hosts belittling and being awful to women like that, but clearly we hadn't, because it was still happening in the relatively recent past. But yeah, the way they start off with, and especially Jay Leno, is he's another prototypical douchebag that you just think, oh god, like why does anyone have to sit here and endure his nonsense, basically. But yeah, I think the show will.
How dare you diss the star of WCW Road Wild 1998 from Sturgis?
Fucking shove it right up the tailpipe of that. Yeah, it's a very extreme show. It's at the moment it's in a sort of very fun, playful kind of part hedonist comedy, part heist movie type situation, but I think it's just going to be a bit of a sour tale towards the end. The acting performances from Lily James and Sebastian Stan are so fantastic. They've got the just the intimate details of how the characters are down pat so perfectly, and it's really fascinating to watch them interact with each other and kind of imagine how this would have played out, and it feels incredibly authentic to what the experience would have been. So it's a very interesting show. A massive trigger warning for content if people don't want to see a man talking to his own penis.